I thank God for every remembrance I have of First Presbyterian Church. When I walk into this beautiful sanctuary, I feel a peace come over me, the kind of peace you feel like when you're home. I was 4 years old when we moved to Sumter in 1958, and I've been worshiping here ever since. My children, John Hilton III and Margaret Hilton, were baptized here, attended Sunday school and youth group, and now my grandson, John Hilton IV, attends preschool here. My Christian journey begins at First Presbyterian Church because of my parents, Margaret and Sam Hunter. My mom was baptized here, grew up in this church. She and my dad were married here. Here's a photograph of them walking down this aisle. They were married right here in 1946, and walking down the aisle, they were 22 years old. When they moved back to Sumter in 1958, Dad became a member here. I want to talk for a few minutes about these two remarkable people, my parents, Margaret and Sam Hunter. Here's a picture of how they looked later in their years, so that those of you who didn't get to know them can get a picture of how beautiful they are. As I was preparing my comments, I talked first to my siblings, Sam Hunter III, Sally Eisengrein, and Margaret Outlaw. So what I will share with you is from our collective memories. Mom and Dad loved First Presbyterian Church. They were faithful attendees, and of course, so were their 4 children. We sat on the 3rd row over here on this side of the sanctuary during Sunday morning worship, and we sat on the 3rd pew in the chapel for Sunday evening worship. My dad, Sam Hunter Jr., was a man of deep Christian faith and conviction, and he was our Barnabas. He was an encourager. He encouraged us, his children. He encouraged everyone he met. He showed us Jesus every day in so many ways, but most notably, the way he lived Jesus' commandment to us to love everyone. Dad served as a deacon and an elder and was honored with the title of Elder Emeritus. He taught Sunday school for 50 years. He taught in all the departments, from youth to adults. I can still see him at the table at night preparing his lesson. He had Bibles and reference books and maps all around him. He was much in demand as a teacher, a true student of the Bible. He served as president of the Bethany Sunday School class for many years. He also coached the girls' First Presbyterian Church League basketball team when my sisters, Margaret and Sally, played basketball, and led them to undefeated seasons and championships every year. Dad was a superior coach on the basketball court, on the tennis courts, on the baseball field. In our family, he was a coach. He coached his 10 grandchildren in the backyard, playing all kinds of sports as they grew up. And it was just his nature, to be, because he was such an encourager. And he was also a great athlete. One of my favorite stories about my dad at First Presbyterian Church took place in a Sunday school class that he and Mom attended when he wasn't teaching. I have to tell you that my dad was a structural engineer, and he was funny and he loved to laugh, but he was also kind of a no-nonsense guy. He was an engineer. So on this particular Sunday, a new teacher was leading the class, and she had given all the adults in the class a piece of construction paper, a pair of scissors, and a marker. And her idea was an opening activity to help them get to know each other, and they were to create a name tag, cut out some kind of symbol that represented themselves, and write their name on the name tag and pin it to their shirt. So people were cutting out all kinds of things, like hearts, flowers, stars, footballs, things that they felt represented themselves, and writing their name and pin it to their shirt. Well, Mom said that day Dad was late, and he came into class, and the teacher took a minute to explain the activity to him, and Dad said, okay, and he took his piece of construction paper and his marker and his scissors and walked back and sat down in the chair next to Mom where she'd been saving him a seat. And then he proceeds to write Sam on the 8.5 piece of construction paper and pinned it to the shirt, the entire 8.5 piece of construction paper, pinned it to the shirt. Mom said she looked at him, she was like, Sam, for heaven's sakes. And he said, what, Margaret? He wasn't trying to be non-compliant, he just didn't get it. An engineer through and through. My mother, Margaret Hunter, served her church and its people in a myriad of ways. She played the piano for years in Sunday school classes, from children to adults, and sometimes she would play in 3 classes in an hour, beginning in one class, playing a few hymns, moving to the next class, and then ending the hour in the 3rd class. She did this for years. But what I want to focus on about her is this. My mother was a natural leader, a servant leader. She was smart, efficient, organized. She dedicated 100% of herself to every project that she undertook at church. She was also able to put out any kind of fire with her calm, loving, diplomatic approach to resolving conflict. Mom was among the first women in our congregation to be elected deacon and then elder. I remember she was very nervous about stepping into those offices that had been held by men her entire life, but Mom was a warrior when it came to the work of the church, and she did a beautiful job. One of her favorite things about being elder was sponsoring young people during their confirmation year. And one of her very favorite memories of that experience was with Hayes Jones, Cricket and Randa's daughter. It was during Hayes' confirmation year, and she and Mom would spend time together every week. And I can tell you that I know Mom was a blessing in Hayes' life because I know my mother, but Hayes was a blessing in my mother's life. And she talked about that for years after, about what a wonderful experience that was to be with that beautiful young lady. In 1982, she became moderator of the Women of the Church. She loved that job and she rocked it. She was honored later as a lifetime member and then as elder emeritus. I would say her most cherished project was co-founding the Mary Martha committees with Martha Shaw. She would often say that church is not only where we come to learn about Jesus, but also where we become the hands and feet of Jesus. I praise God for the blessing of Margaret and Sam Hunter in the life of the First Presbyterian Church. And we sure do miss you, Mom and Dad. Your insight and wisdom and your Christian approach to solving all problems and offering wonderful positive solutions is missed. But we are grateful and we will always remember. Thank you.